Live from Hoboken, New Jersey, it's the Shmee Show with Sam Pelissero, correspondent Kelly Fitzpatrick, Nicky Thomas, and special guest of the day, Nick Troiano. And here's your host, Sam.
Shmee! Welcome to the Shmee Show. It is July 13th, 2021, and I need to apologize for some things before we continue on with the show. So I received some feedback from last week's premiere episode, and apologies are due. The first thing I need to apologize for is how I ended last week's show. So, being naive, and this show airing on Tuesdays, I ended the show saying, "See you next Tuesday." Roll the clip. Bye guys, see you next Tuesday. So I did not realize what I was saying. And it is the word that I will not say because I do not need to come on here next week and apologize for actually saying the word that I spelt out unintentionally. So I want to say I'm sorry if I offended anyone, but hey, I was just as naive as saying that as I was when I finally realized that when RuPaul on RuPaul's Drag Race says he's looking for charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent, he was spelling that word. So I'll have to end the show a new way. I'll figure it out. You'll see at the end of the episode. But I also need to secondly apologize for the scare that I caused talking about the good old lump in my neck. It's just an abscess. That's what the doctor said. I got the results in. It's not cancer. It's not a tumor. It's not chlamydia. It is just an abscess that if it doesn't go away, they'll take it out. Or if I want it as a icebreaker at a party, I can keep it. So I'm a little bummed though, because I made a really fun graphic for a segment that I was going to be calling Sam and the giant peach pit in his neck. Roll the graphic.
That's a big fucking peach.
Like, how fun would that have been, right? I worked so hard on that graphic too, but it's fine. At least you saw it. But now, thirdly, I need to apologize. God, I'm so problematic after one episode. I need to apologize for the length of last week's episode. I got a lot of flack for it being 2 hours, but no, that was my reaction too. When I strung the whole thing out and I realized I had created a 2-hour show, I knew that I was in for it. But it's just because when I started making the Shmee Show, it was supposed to just be the virtual interviews and that was it. But then as I started creating it and as I got to go outside again and got new ideas, I wanted to add things to it, but I didn't want to cut half of the interview out to make it an hour show. So I wanted to keep the full interviews, and that's why I upload the show the way that I do, with different segments, but you can stream the whole thing live if you want to. No one's ever gonna do that because it's too fucking long and no one has the time. I don't even have the time to watch my own show. So I apologize, and I promise to keep these shows as close to 90 minutes as possible. Okay, now before I elongate the show any further, it is time for me to step up on my soapbox, preach the little preach, and talk about what is good. What is good, America? Between the dates of June 28th and today, there have been so many golden examples that have risen to the surface of the problems we have in our country. For starters, Britney Spears. After giving the most chilling, compelling, and crazy testimonial we have all been waiting years for, the judge decides to not dissolve her conservatorship. Her dad, Jamie Spears, not to be confused with her other rotted family member, her sister, Jamie Lynn, "I'm lying to steal all of my sister's money and she wants to sue me too," Spears, is still going to be the head of her conservatorship. And this is after Britney said, and I quote, "The control he had over someone as powerful as me, he loved the control to hurt his own daughter 100,000%. He loved it." I, for one, would 100,000% love to throw this scumbag in jail. And perfect, because now there's a vacant jail cell in Pennsylvania because we decided to let Bill Cosby go on a technicality after 60 plus women came forward with sexual assault allegations. I'm pretty sure that's more than Donald Trump. And hello, people, these are not high scores we're trying to achieve here. Oh, and speaking of, I hope I get this right, Trump might be the one who's going to occupy that vacant jail cell pretty soon because thanks to the Manhattan DA, they have charged the Trump Organization and CFO Alan Weisselberg with 15 counts of alleged tax fraud schemes. Now, that may be a glimmer of hope, but it's a glimmer of hope among a dark cloud of oppressing women. And speaking of oppressing women, Sha'Carri Richardson, the track sensation who is about to represent the United States at the Summer Olympics, was suspended for testing positive for marijuana. Now, just as I was about to get up in arms and shout from the rooftops about how we need to reform these rules because, hello, weed is pretty in now, Twitter flew in with the receipts. She is an out and proud member of the LGBTQIA+ community, but she was tweeting some of the most homophobic things I've ever seen. Example number 1. If you support Lil Nas X, unfollow me. First of all, done. Second of all, what? Example number 2. If you a blank and you wear pink, die in a pit, 'cause you gay as fuck. Now, the first one she can get away with, it being an opinion. Maybe she doesn't like his music. But the second one, what? What is good? Why would you say that? Why would anyone say something like that? It doesn't even, it's just dumb. It's really, really exhausting when someone in my community wins. And then as a community, we lift them up. And just as soon as we're lifting them up, do we get the carpet ripped out from under us? Because then we're reminded that just because someone's gay doesn't mean they're a good person. Colton Underwood, Perez Hilton, Lindsey Graham. Yes, it is fucked that she got suspended over marijuana charges when marijuana is legal in a lot of states now, and it's not even a substance that enhances someone's athletic performance. But there's a lot to unpack there, and I am not the one to unpack it, nor do we have the time. So I will leave you with this. Can we please just take all these assholes, put them on an island somewhere, and let them run their own government filled with dark money, conspiracy theorists, and self-projecting closeted white men, and they can call it America. All right, I am so excited for the rest of the show. Sticking with the political theme, up next, we have the executive director of Unite America, Nick Troiano. I'm so excited for you guys to see this interview. And later on in the show, we also have Nicky Thomas back for a Trader Joe's taste testing segment, and Kelly Fitz will also be stopping by. So enjoy the break, and I will see you guys soon. Bye!
Hi, my name is Javi Perez, and this is Social Club. Social Club is smart, form-focused fitness, but it doesn't take itself too seriously. We have fun, we sweat, we push each other. Social Club is how I deliver joy.
Next on the Shmee Show, I have the executive director of Unite America, Nick Troiano. And personally, I think he's pretty cool. Take a look. As the executive director of Unite America, Nick Troiano is one who is spearheading change in the American government. Once a Republican and now an independent, Nick seeks out solutions in America's primaries, policies, and politics. You may recognize him from his many appearances on daytime and nighttime talk shows using his platform for the greater good. In my opinion, Nick is a true American hero. He ran for Congress back in 2014, and although he did not win the race, his spirit and support remain strong. Because as he sees it, it's better to light a single candle than curse at the darkness. Welcome to the Shmee Show, Nick Troiano!
Awesome to be with you, Sam.
Thank you so much for being here today.
You got it.
How's the weather in Denver today?
It's cloudy, not too nice outside. Yesterday we had a good day, so if I have like sunglass,
Oh wait, hold on, me too. I actually had to put some makeup on. There's a line right here for my glasses. That is so funny. I was like, I cannot go on camera looking like that. So for the people at home who don't know who you are, in your own words, who is Nick Troiano?
that's a good question. I am a young 30-something living in Denver, trying to make a positive mark on the world in the realm of political reform. And I would say perhaps the word that best describes me is passionate and intentional with how I use my time to pursue passions. And like I said, hopefully make a difference.
That phrase, like intentional, really resonates with me. I just saw a post today on Instagram that was talking about be intentional with your energy. And I feel like when you kind of rewire your brain in a way to really focus on the things that you want to get done, and it could be as simple as like just a task list for the day. But when you show intent in those actions, you always seem to get like better response, I guess. And which is, I mean, let me first of all, for the people at home, let me read off some of your, I guess, accolades that so the way that your bio on your website is written up cracks me up because it's so like, okay, so here we go, ready? So for people who don't know, Nick was on Forbes 30 Under 30. He co-founded the Can Kicks Back campaign, which we're going to talk about. He has a master's degree from Georgetown University. And because of that, he was the champion of creating a $1 million social innovation and public service fund. And then at the bottom, after all these things, then it goes, and in his spare time, he enjoys hiking, photography, and travel. It's like it's like all these awesome things. It's like he's the coolest guy in the world. And on his downtime, he likes to take photos.
Well, you can see some of those pictures around me. I do enjoy photography as a hobby.
Do you miss traveling?
I do. I think COVID's definitely put a hamper on that, but also in the last year, being able to regain some semblance of work-life balance has been nice, being off the road as well.
All right, so let's dive right into it. So Nick, for the people who don't know, what is Unite America?
Unite America is an organization that's working to enact structural political reforms to change the incentives of our elected leaders. So we work in coalition with other organizations to advance things like anti-gerrymandering, ranked choice voting, nonpartisan primaries, vote at home, because all of us involved may feel differently about different particular issues, but we all agree that government ought to be serving the people and in narrowing our differences to solve big problems that we face. And so we're trying to bridge the partisan divides through electoral reform.
And you can donate to the organization, correct?
You sure can. Imagine that. We have a donate button on our website, which is just uniteamerica.org.
And I have to say, I'm very envious that the pin isn't one of the options to get when you do donate. I was like, damn it. I was like, I want that pin so bad.
I'll get you a pin, and
okay.
We will hopefully relaunch our site store soon, which will have some good stuff like that.
Oh, I didn't know you guys had a. We
used to. I don't think we have it anymore, but
no, I don't think so.
We should get it back up.
Oh, yeah.
Very cool little America pins that have Unite.
I love it. As the executive director of Unite America, what is your day-to-day life like? Because for people on the outside, they're seeing you on TV, you're talking about your op-eds, but I guess for those who are kind of interested in this industry, and I guess this career, like what is that like for you?
Well, I consider myself to be a civic entrepreneur, as someone who is trying to marry the best part about being entrepreneurial and sort of innovation oriented with the best parts about being community oriented and caring about public service. And so the confluence of those two things for me means, how do I achieve impact by doing new and entrepreneurial things to solve problems as they exist in the world? And so a large part of the day today for me is not unlike someone who is founded and is trying to scale a startup in the private sector, which is, how do you build a team, strengthen your team, stay focused on what your mission is, demonstrate proof of concept, try and get to that next stage. And so part of the job entails doing some of the public facing media stuff, but that's a very tiny part about how I spend my time.
Okay.
Most of my time is spent trying to figure out how to scale a nascent organization into one that can have significant impact over a sustainable period of time.
So, like, when you're going on these talk shows, are you using that as a way to almost not pitch yourself, but I guess pitch the organization to possibly get funding in a way? So, like, another person could see, like, oh, I align with this. Let me reach out to Nick now that I'm aware of what this, because I had no idea what Unite America was until I saw you a couple months ago.
Yeah.
And then I fell down that rabbit hole and I was like, I think I'm a lot more independent than I realized I was beforehand.
Yeah, I think the work that Unite America does is trying to focus people not just on who we elect, but how we elect, and changing the incentive structure of our political system through electoral reform. And that requires a paradigm shift in the way that people think about politics. And so there's a lot of work that needs to be done to reframe politics for people and focus them on ways that we can fix the problems that we see. And that takes a lot of public education and awareness building. And so that's one benefit for trying to get the message out there through traditional and social media channels. The other benefit, frankly, is we need to raise significant resources to invest in the solutions that work. And the benefit of media is trying to reach people who might be interested in investing, but also to have some third-party validation that these ideas are mainstream, that there are credible news outlets willing to cover them, that I think is helpful as well.
Totally. How did you get into this? Because for me, I've only been really, I guess, invested in our political system over the past few years, because growing up, I came from a very Republican household, and all I ever saw was Fox News. So I never had any sort of outside perspective until I got out of the house and started to see other forms of media and life. For you, as someone who also grew up on the East Coast, because I'm from New Jersey and you're originally from Pennsylvania, what was the turning point in your life where it clicked and you thought, I like this and I want to pursue this and I want to change this?
I think I fell into politics by joining student council in second grade, and the rest kind of snowballing from there, in the sense of what is politics but public service, and what is your community when you're in school? That's your class, right? When you get a little bit older, it's your town. As I went to college and graduated, my perspective widened even further. And so I think I always had a sort of civic interest. And then what really got me interested in political reform was meeting my mentor in politics, a guy named Doug Bailey, who was one of the first national Republican political consultants of his time ever, and someone who left politics when it became quite negative in the 80s and pursued other ventures, but came out of retirement when he saw our polarization taking root and the growing partisanship, and decided to do something about it, which was a group called Unity 08, which tried to run a bipartisan presidential ticket in 2008. And that was my first internship and my first campaign I was a part of. And it really widened my perspective as to what the problem is and how to think outside the box of creative ways of solving it.
Because weren't you the student council president in your high school?
I was, yes.
Which is cool. I mean, that's awesome. That you were able to get that.
It was
sort
interesting in student government to, run I was student council treasurer or student government president, etc. I became really interested in that, and I think probably was also shaped by what others were telling me. Oh, you can be this or that one day, and that kind of positive reinforcement, I'm sure, trends in a certain direction, which I've been self-reflective of in the way of being grateful to have had that from people who cared about me, teachers, my fellow students, my family, etc. And also realizing that it's a big part of what explains a lot of the disparities we see in politics, because especially even going back a decade or two, with people seeing people who look like me as being natural political leaders and not otherwise, probably contributes to a sense of who actually goes into politics or not.
Speaking of look like you in the literal sense, what is your background, by the way? Like heritage wise?
Yeah, my family's Italian. My
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
well, Troiano has enough vowels in it, hopefully, to prove it. So that just means, we're like any other Italian American family, like to
Okay.
eat a lot, yell at each other, talk with our hands, etc.
Yeah.
But it also meant, culturally, just having a very close and tight knit family
Yeah.
growing up, and to this day.
Absolutely. Do you have siblings?
I have an older sister, Tiffany,
Okay.
who
Okay.
is entrepreneurial in her own right with a maternity clothing business called Tiff Marie Maternity. So if you know pregnant women out there who are in the market, look it up. And she now lives in Nashville.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool. That's awesome. It's funny because I've been, doing so much research on you for this interview, and I don't know if this is intentional or not. That's the word of the day, intentional. You do a really good job of keeping the focus on you and not so much your personal life, which I admire that a lot. I think that's why I'm like always inspired by anything you ever say, is because it's always coming from who Nick is and not his personal surroundings, but you're like you're almost like standing alone. Like I had no idea you had siblings because you give off this energy of just, who you are, you know what you want, and there's no outside influence changing that. And that's cool. Like that's really, really cool to like see.
Yeah.
So just
I appreciate
props to
that.
you.
It probably reflects a discomfort I have of making anything about me personally, but also
Yeah.
coming to terms with the idea that sometimes I personally can be a good vehicle for the things that I care about. And of course, that was something I came to grips with in deciding to run for office early on, because you discover when you want to get elected to something, you probably should be willing to talk about yourself.
Totally. Okay, so you brought it up. Let's hop onto that. So in 2014, you ran for Congress. For the people at home and people listening, you did one of the most creative ways to run your campaign. So you utilized the internet. You made videos on more than a weekly basis talking about the platform you were running on, parts about even the federal government that you would want to change, not just even like the local area. And to me, it spoke volumes because it showed how much you actually cared, because it's clearly you were doing that on your own time. You weren't in a studio. You didn't have a whole team behind you. It was very like you're well educated on these topics and you knew what you were talking about, and you wanted to show people like this is what you're voting for. So because this is what I don't know, what was the decision behind running? How long did it take you to get to that? I'm going to pull the trigger and I'm going to run for Congress. And let's start there because then we'll go through the rest.
Sure. Well, the backstory to my running was that I didn't expect to do that, or at least so soon in my career or in my life. But I was at the time studying in Washington, D.C., running a nonprofit that was focused on trying to bring solutions forward on federal budget issues and our national debt, seeing how the Congress was incapable of doing that because of how dysfunctional and divided we are, and realizing that it was my congressman from back where I'm from in Pennsylvania that so exemplified the problem in our politics today. And when I realized that I come from a gerrymandered district with closed primaries, with low voter turnout, the congressman was only representing a handful of voters, not the entire district. And he was a shoo-in for re-election, but for anyone challenging him who wasn't a Democrat, who would never win in that district. And so I for a while had a belief that every young person as a kind of civic rite of passage ought to do a year of national service in some way, whether that's between high school or college and their career. And I decided to consider running for office for a year as an independent, as a way of trying to give back and make a difference, maybe show that there's another path forward in our political system, and use the idea of running for office to engage with thousands of people to educate them about the political system and some of these issues. So after the government shutdown in 2013 happened, that was the catalyzing event that made me say to myself, maybe this is the right time to try this.
That makes so much sense. I mean, I'm lucky to live in a very liberal city where Would I like to be on the city council? Sure. Do I feel like my presence is needed to make the change that I would want to see? No. But at the same time, I had the same mindset as you of just why not? Why not? And it's funny because when people ask me, like, I'm like, well, what platforms would you run on? And I'm like super into getting the homeless off the street and into housing. Like those are the kind of things I want to run for. But that's not really a huge problem where I live, which kind of like stinks, is like all these, like hit points. I'm like, I'm gonna go up there and they're like, Sam, there's affordable housing down the street they live in. I'm like, okay, well, how about the parking problem? Like, that's handled.
Yeah.
So for you, it's really cool that you saw the problem and you were in an area where like, this is it. Like, this is it. So circling back to the fact that you were once Republican and then switched to independent, I have to ask, did you affiliate with the Republican Party because of the environment you grew up in? And then you realize like, oh, I don't believe in a lot of the stuff. Or was it like, oh, and you actually do believe in a lot of those values more than the Democratic Party, but independent just sat better with you?
To be honest with you, don't know what exactly influenced my early political beliefs other than I had an early perspective and I kind of got immersed in it in being Republican. It's not like I had diehard Republican parents. In fact, they were Perot voters in the 90s, which I think foretold a sort of independent streak that runs through my family. But of course, I grew up in a pretty conservative and Republican small town in a pretty rural county, and so that may have had something to do with it. But my perspective evolved over time, just as my perspective widened, especially in going to college, and I began to appreciate that one side does not sort of have a monopoly on a perspective on any particular problem, and became more independent minded as a result. But what catalyzed my leaving the Republican Party was, again, what happened with that government shutdown. And so I just couldn't stay affiliated to a party. I seemed to be more interested in performance and theatrics and actual policy making.
Absolutely. And it's unfortunate because as someone who is a registered Democrat for now, I feel the same way, that like now there's so much drama and theatrics in our government, even now within the Democratic Party. And it's really, really hard to be around people. Like, for instance, I joined the Hoboken Democrat Committee. And very quickly, this is another reason why I was like, I think I'm a lot more independent than I thought, was because like in those first few meetings, there's a lot of like, just like a lot of like really far, deep liberal talk that even I was like, that's crazy. I just don't believe in everything that fits under the Democratic umbrella.
Yeah.
Some people can agree. Like I have friends who, and I'm sure you do too, who it's like, yeah, I didn't support the Trump administration, but there were some things that weren't bad. The face of the party was not great, but underneath it, they were doing some good things. You have to acknowledge that.
Listen, there are more independents than there are Democrats and Republicans. And a big reason why is that people don't have totally consistent views with one party or the other. And they like to think for themselves rather than having some, team red or team blue tell them what to think.
100%, which we will get to that later too in your 2019 speech at your old high school. But so going back to you running for Congress, Mr. Lovely Tom Marino was the incumbent, and I didn't know who he really was until I was doing research on you. And the more I did research, the more I did research on him, and I was like, oh my God, I really wish Nick had totally just like annihilated him in that election, because in 2017, Trump nominated him to be the drug czar, and then he had to revoke that nomination because they found out he was supporting a bill that made it hard for the DEA to policy opioids. What was that like to go up against someone that you knew was so morally wrong? And then also to give you guys background, Nick would go and like be like, "Hi, why won't you debate me? Please debate me." And it was like the best video of you like, "Okay,
it
you seriously
eventually
debate
happened,
me."
and that's probably the moment I'm most proud of. And with the entire year was being able to share the stage with the incumbent congressperson as a 24-year-old and take him to task on every policy and his approach to politics, which I disagreed with. And it also was just a humbling experience that as a citizen, you can do that. You can go out and get the signatures, you can get your name on the ballot. And in this country, you have to earn every vote just like the other candidate does. And so that's what, although I lost that race, it gave me still some hope in the system that we can change it. Because at the end of the day, we still have the power of the vote and the power to, run for office. But I would say that he was a giant motivator for me because he did represent what I feel was wrong. The issue that you spoke of was the fact that most of his campaign money came from special interest groups trying to influence policy on the committees that he sat, one of which was the pharmaceutical industry. And he did support a bill that made it harder to crack down on the opioid crisis, which struck my district, my hometown, and still does, quite hard. And so is there any more case in point
Ammo or absolutely.
of the system than the incumbent congressman taking stances on issues that was literally killing people that he was supposed to be representing.
My biggest pain when it comes to these kind of situations is I'll watch the news and I get so mad. I'm like, why would someone want to do a job that they're not doing the job? And then I remember ego, power, money, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But to me, I guess you and I are very morally sane people where I'm like, if I'm not going to do a job, I'm not going to be doing the job. Like, I'm not going to want to run for that position. And for you, what's crazy is that even though Tom, he got like 100,000 votes, you got over 22,000 votes, Nick. Like, that's crazy. Like you said in your speech, you're like, we didn't light one candle tonight. We lit over 20,000. And seeing those people's responses to what you were standing for, it just like made me so happy that, again, there's people like you who are doing these things.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Sam. I would say that what I felt good about was fulfilling the purpose of why I ran, which was to be an outlet for people to express their dissatisfaction with the system. And we got about 13% of the vote in the congressional district, which is the most competitive three-way independent U.S. House race in a couple of decades. And we did that by running a pretty bootstrapped campaign. So I was proud by how far we got, but also dismayed by seeing up close just the enormous barriers to what it would take someone to actually cross the finish line who weren't running within a particular party. And that's informed all of my work since 2014. And that's the story of, my involvement in politics, which is try something, likely fail at it, iterate, solve for the last barrier that you faced. And it's a journey, of course, and I'm still on.
Question, and I'm sure you've been asked this 1,000 times, would you ever run again in any sort of capacity?
Well, for me, my decision to run in the first place was I cared about an issue that I thought I could make a difference on and had an opportunity to do that. It's about being impact driven. And the truth is, these days, I feel lucky that I did not win that election because I don't know what I would have done as one out of 435 people in a very broken institution. I feel really
so true
about the impact that I'm able to make today in supporting and running an organization that is supporting dozens of candidates for office and changing the structures of our political system. So I'd be hard pressed to see where an avenue for public office may provide greater impact than what I'm doing today, but we'll see where life takes me.
Totally. That reminds me, have you ever seen the show Designated Survivor?
A couple episodes.
Okay, but so my roommate just got me into it, and the main character who played now is the president. He's independent.
Yeah.
So it's so fun. Yeah, so it's so funny to see, like, I've never seen that played out on television before.
Right.
So I can see the fantasy of like, what would it actually be like if we had a president who is completely independent and everyone's losing their minds?
Imagine that.
I would just love that, because circling toward your 2019 speech at your high school, one of the things you said is, if we choose to rise above it, we must start on a personal level and not a political one. We must begin to see each other as Americans first, before we are liberals or conservatives, Democrats or Republicans. And I believe that is like what should be on your tombstone. And also in that speech, you go into a lot of like these really great MLK quotes. He who is devoid of power to forgive is devoid of power to love, which is amazing. And then also a twist is that, the darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Did
Yeah.
you make up that?
Hey, not me, but I was happy to.
No,
quote.
yeah. But did you make up that quote about the candle, or was that someone else's?
No,
quote?
it's taken
'Cause
from a Chinese proverb, actually.
Okay.
And the proverb is something to the effect of it's better to light a single candle than curse at the darkness. I think it gets to the idea, we can be despondent about our political system and just say it's corrupt, it's dysfunctional, it's
Yeah.
horrible, and not do anything about it. But
Yeah.
it's better to light a single candle in the darkness than just to curse at it. And so for me, that has been
100%.
a somewhat quixotic journey, but one that is rooted in let's try to do something about it.
So, as part of Unite America, what are your go-to tactics? So, let's say you're in a grocery store, right? And you're in the middle of a conflict, and it's two people, one from the far left and one from the far right. And your task is to find a way for those two people to find a middle ground. What are your go-to tactics to get people to see the middle ground?
I would start with what not to do, which is probably the go-to tactic of most people when debating someone, which is how can I prove that the other person is wrong, and how can I even use like facts and data to do that? It doesn't work. No one wants to be wrong.
I'm guilty of that.
And, right,
So
in fact, when
guilty of
people, it'll force the other person to double down rather than to actually, change their position. So I would say a couple things. One is that you want to take yourself out of the political context and into the personal. Like, see the other person as a human being more than whatever their policy or political position is that they're communicating. Then I would say listen to understand. Try and figure out what is informing not just their stance on the issue, but how their perspective was shaped that helped them arrive at that stance. And then third, I would say an effective tactic is to ask questions like, what do you think about folks who see it this way? Or how would you respond to this set of alternative data that would point you into a different direction? And so I just think we're oftentimes too quick to want to shut down the other side and present our own narrative without understanding who they are, without understanding their perspective, and without actually listening to them.
Absolutely. I have been in many of situations, just I guess with who I'm friends with and then who they're friends with. I always seem to find myself in positions lately where it's a very mixed group of political affiliation. And I do my best to just say facts and not opinions. And I do have a bad tendency of giving opinions thinking they're facts and then them being like, no. But so for instance, yesterday, this is a good example. I was at my friend's birthday party and I don't know how I got brought up, but someone brought up like, what's your political party? I'm like, that's a weird question to ask someone when you're all drinking. I'm like, this alcohol and politics do not mix. What are we doing here? And the guy made a comment of like, he was like, if you say you're liberal, then like, I'm out of here. And I was like, well, I'm not, but I have tendencies, The more he was talking, the more I realized that maybe the reason why he believes what he believes in is environmental and not actual, I almost said physical, that's not the right word, but like actuality. And I'm like, I bet you had that guy grown up in a different environment and wasn't surrounded by all that, he wouldn't believe that. But I can fault him for that. All I can do, like you said, is give my thoughts, listen to him, and that's it. It shouldn't be my job to try to change someone's mind. So I totally
Yeah,
get
I
that.
think instead of just stating what we believe, it's powerful when we say why we believe it. What are the underlying values behind it? Because that's where a lot of common ground can reveal itself, in that we do share a lot of values as people. We also share a lot of desired outcomes. We just may have different ways of getting there. And that's not to paper over the idea that there are significant differences out there. And there are people on the extremes, right, who are beyond the idea of them, responding to new information or changing their positions. And the goal at the end of the day isn't always to get someone to change their position, but if we understood each other better and approached arguments in good faith, I think we'd end up in a better spot.
Totally. Everything you're saying is just like resonating so much. So I'm so used to having conversations and having to like elaborate, but like you're so well spoken that everything you're saying, I'm like, yep, and period. That's the end of that conversation. So what would you like to see in American politics over the next 4 years? But specifically, what are you anticipating on happening in the special elections in, what is it, already like 2 years or for now, which is not even. I mean, a year and a half, really, which is nuts to think about.
I expect we'll see what we have seen for the last 10 years, which is a pendulum swing. Voters expressing their dissatisfaction by punishing whichever party happens to be in power. And so it wouldn't surprise me for Republicans to pick up seats in Congress, potentially take back the House. That would be consistent with historical patterns here. But the downside is I'm pessimistic in the short term, but optimistic in the long term. In the short term, I think we'll continue to see sort of this doom loop of polarization take place, where we're in an accelerating kind of self-reinforcing cycle of division, because that's what all the incentives are. But over the long term, I hope that we will take on challenges of the dysfunction in our political process that produces those bad incentives, and we'll take on the fact that information systems and the rise of disinformation and partisan echo chambers online. I mean, these are problems that are getting more salience now because people are seeing how they're actually not just bad for governance, they're actually a threat to democracy, as we saw on January 6th. And so as more people lean into those solutions, I'm hoping that we will find a way out of this mess, because our country's done that before. Heck, we fought a civil war.
Yeah.
So it's been worse. And I think, it's important to keep that in mind, not, present history just as some idealized version of what we think the country should be. But our best days can still be before us if we get serious about tackling these challenges.
Totally. Do you ever get exhausted when you think that growing up, we would read so much in history books? But do you ever get exhausted? You're like, we're living too much history right now. Like, there's too many things happening.
Yeah. I caught myself this week. I didn't listen live to Biden's first address to Congress.
Mhm.
And it's like,
Mhm.
as a political junkie, I felt like I violated some moral code. And I just realized there just is too much happening. There is a bit of exhaustion about it. And also, as an aside, it's also good to know, like, nothing crazy is going to happen to that speech, and you don't need to watch it tonight. So that's part of it was a little relieving too.
Okay, so one of the things you did recently, which I want to ask about, which I talked about before we started recording, is you were on a very early morning talk show, which is ironically called Way Too Early with Casey Hunt on MSNBC. And I saw it on YouTube and I thought, great, another Nick interview. Awesome. But then I look at the bottom right corner and I see that the episode aired at 5:30 Eastern Standard Time. And then I remember that you live in Colorado. And I thought, oh my God, this guy got up at 3:30 in the morning to go on national television. How does his brain function that early?
Yeah, I would say it's hard to get media attention for some of these process ideas and how do we fix politics, because you're not going on television to scream at the other side, and it doesn't make for as great a ratings. And so in the context of, like, it's hard to get media for fixing democracy, you kind of take what you'll get. And if that means getting up at 3 a.m. To get on MSNBC, that doesn't bother me so much. But the good part,
and they love you over there anyways. Like, they love
and not 5 a.m. I actually went back to sleep after that and got a couple more.
I had a feeling. Like, I was like, he definitely went to bed after that. He was like, and good night. But it was a good interview, because so one of the things that is, I guess, like, not going viral, but is like the quote from that interview is you were talking about how our primaries have got to go. And I thank you so much for informing me so much about that, because I knew in my mind what needed to happen, but you're the person who, like, put it into words. So for people who don't know, only 10% of eligible voters in the US cast ballots in primaries, effectively electing 83% of Congress, leaving us with ideological extremists, partisan purists, and conspiracy theorists. If that ain't the truth, I don't know what
Yeah,
it
it's
is.
one of the things that doesn't get enough attention, which is the fact that most members of Congress are not elected in the general elections that most of us participate in. These districts are so Democratic or so Republican that the primary is the only election that matters, which is bad because very few people participate or even can participate. Where I'm from in Pennsylvania, as an independent, you don't get to participate in the primary. More than 10 million independents are in the same boat. So you wind up
Wow.
that disenfranchise a lot of people, but also distort the representation that we get. And I used Marjorie Taylor Greene as an example, someone who's gotten a lot of attention for being on that conspiracy theory wing of the Republican Party. She only got 8.5% of eligible voters to support her in the primary. So if we want to change the outcomes of the system, we have to change the process. And there are states that have reforms that we're supporting that could do that.
So what would your fantasy look like if we did completely restructure the primaries? Would one of your solutions possibly be that, universal mail-in ballot where like it comes to the House? Because the reason why I say that is one of the things I'm very guilty of. This is like pre-Sam into politics, is I would get those primary ballots in the mail and I would just throw them out because I didn't understand the weight of what was in there. I was like, I don't care about this person running my school district, whatever. And then like, lo and behold, I'm like, oh my God, I could have elected unintentionally. Me not voting is giving a vote.
People don't truly appreciate that. Yeah, I think the short of it is that you replace the two-party primaries with a single nonpartisan primary, so every voter gets to participate, and all the candidates do as well. The top vote getters go to the general election, and you can rank them in order of preference, so whomever wins does so with majority support. And the advantage that this system would have, in addition to enfranchising the entire electorate, is it forces the candidates in the general election to compete on their ideas and not just their identity, because it's not just a zero-sum red versus blue election. They actually have to distinguish themselves by what they want to do and where they stand on the issues. And I think that would have a very positive impact on our politics.
Cool. So you said two keywords over the last part of the interview that I actually had written down for you to explain to the people at home, because even I have a hard time understanding the true meaning of it. Can you explain zero sum, like what the definition of zero sum politics is, and the doom loop, so people understand like the severity of these two things in our political system?
Yeah. So the doom loop is a phrase I've borrowed from Lee Drutman, who's a political scientist and wrote a book similarly titled, which is the idea that you can imagine a loop that accelerates in nature when we're not just fighting each other over policy, but we actually think winning is all that matters. And so each party is trying to extract some advantage by changing the rules in their own favor, which leads to the other party turning up the heat a little bit and doing the same thing when they're in power. And that loop continues to spiral until we've destroyed our institutions. And so Republicans want to block Democrats from appointing a Supreme Court justice in Obama's last year. Well, now Democrats are talking about adding new justices to the Supreme Court. That's an example of the loop. Zero-sum politics is essentially that in order for me to win, you have to lose. It's zero-sum in nature. And so this often comes to pass in Congress because the minority party won't want to contribute anything to a solution if the majority party is going to get any credit for it in the next election. They'd rather see nothing get done. And so that kind of zero-sum mentality is a way that politicians use to drive votes and get elected, but leads to very bad policy and outcomes for the people they're supposed to be representing. If you go back half a century, there was a lot more ideological diversity within both parties. You had liberal and conservative Democrats and liberal and conservative Republicans. And issues like civil rights helped to realign our politics such that each party became more homogenous in terms of their ideology. Mm-hmm. And so now you only pretty much have conservative Republicans and liberal Democrats to varying flavors on both sides. But the real danger of what's happening is that because there are fewer kind of cross-cutting coalitions within both parties, our identity is stacked up so that if you're a Democrat, you're probably also progressive. You probably also live in an urban area. You probably also shop at Whole Foods. And if you're a conservative Republican, it means this list of things. And so every disagreement of policy becomes a disagreement of identity. And we're wired as being tribal creatures. We see the world as us versus them, which makes it very hard and much more difficult to find common ground when you don't have any identities that kind of cut across these political coalitions. So that's why Drutman and others have made the case for a more pluralistic democracy where we can have more parties and more competition. So it's not just the binary, yes, no, black and white, zero sumness that I was talking about before.
One of the things I actually am really interested in talking to you about, and it's funny because, again, going back to you, not hiding your personal life, but just doing a good job of keeping it private and personal, is the fact that you're an openly gay man. And that is really inspiring for me to look at, because you're just who you are. You're doing your thing. You're doing good for the world. What I want to know is, were there any fears for you of what that could do for your career? Because unfortunately, we all live with that, of like what it would do for your career when you did decide to come out. If you feel comfortable sharing when you came out and what that experience was like, and how it's been if there's been any sort of like liberating, joyful experiences in your career now that, you're in a happy relationship and you're like, your career is taking off, and like what that's all like for you.
Yeah, so I would say I came out to myself and to my family and close friends when I was 23, which was earlier the same year that I also decided to run for office. And especially going back to 2014, it seems recent, but it is another world ago. Culturally, it was in a much different time. That's something I had to contend with, because I knew that it was not an asset, but a liability in actually running for office, especially in the district that I was. But I told myself I would only run under two conditions, which is one, I would be truthful to myself and others, and two, I would only take positions that I sincerely held or felt at the time. And while I didn't run that race as an out gay candidate, in fact, I felt I was already pushing a couple boulders up the hill and being 24 and independent. And I just wasn't quite ready for it. I was prepared to answer the question. And it was something that I even rehearsed with myself before I decided to get in, to see if I would be ready to do that. And I also, was an advocate for marriage equality at a time where that wasn't the easiest, position to do. But again, that was part of my criteria for running. But I would say that happened in a context in which I personally was getting more comfortable with that side of myself, which, as anyone who's been down that path knows, it's a journey. It doesn't happen all at once. And the idea of it gets better, which was the campaign around all of this, a few years ago, just rings true, because that's been my experience over the last, close to 10 years or so. And the gratifying part about it is it's never been the part of my identity that I put my foot forward on. And it doesn't need to be. And now when I'm comfortable sharing that part of who I am with others, it is received in such a gracious and positive way. And it's just not an issue that preoccupies me as it totally did, back then.
So the reason why I asked is that even to this day, I came out when I was 18, and so I turned 30 next month. So I went out for a very long time, but I still find myself in situations where I finally received the approval of someone that I'm like, either is someone I look up to, or just as a colleague, and then there's that little voice in the back of my mind that thinks and says, but would they still give you their approval if they knew that you were gay?
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that as men in 2021, we still have to live like that, because even though we've come so far, we've only come so much. And I'm really happy to hear that nothing has ever gone wrong in your career when you decided just to be who you are, which is amazing.
Perhaps it did, and I'm not aware of it, but I also concerned with it in the sense of and I don't give a crap what other people think at a certain point, and you will accept whatever the consequences are to being your true self. And it took me a while to arrive there, but I feel comfortable kind of operating in that space with deep appreciation for people who had to take this journey at a much different time. In fact, one of the first people I went to talk to about running was a civic leader where I'm from in my hometown of Milford, who's our current mayor, named Sean Strube. And he ran for Congress in his early 30s, 1990, as one of the first openly gay and the first HIV positive candidates for Congress. And I've so admired how he has made that part of who he is part of his advocacy and the difference that he's made. And it meant a lot to me for him to be one of the first, two people who was encouraging of my entering the political space, and also, one of the first supporters I had in my campaign back then.
I had no idea that's so crazy. I'll have to look into him. I had no idea that was
Yeah,
his
there's a
background.
great documentary that he is in. I think it's called My Friend the Mayor. He's an extraordinary leader and activist. And anyway, he also has a great memoir that's out, and it has, for me, put in perspective of gay men who've had to experience a lot greater difficulties, decades ago than we do today.
Love it. I love it. Oh God, Nick, I'm so happy that we're having this conversation. What advice would you give to someone who wants to get involved in politics?
It's the same piece of advice I've given for a while, which is just to find your passion. Like, find the issue that really speaks to you. Find the why of politics, because politics as an end to itself, power as an end to itself, is not a great path to take. Politics as a means to solving the problem that you really care about, the difference that you want to make, will, I think, be the most fulfilling and the best path for everyone else too, for someone to take. So find your passion and expose yourself to a lot of different ideas and issues as a way of getting there.
Cool. I also want to go back really quick to talk about the speech you gave at your high school, because I just have to say, and you can say this happened or not, but had I been in the audience watching that, and not, because I didn't come out till like the last week of high school for me, had I been in the audience and watched that speech, I would have gone home and came out to my parents, because that speech was so inspiring. Because you're such a like a rock star to me, and you're so humble, and it's so impressive that you can just, like, the way that you like articulate your words, and it makes anyone want to be a good person. So I just want to say, like, I hope there was someone in that audience who was a closeted gay kid afraid of, like, what's my life gonna be like, and they saw you, and they're like, I can be like Nick,
Well, thanks for that, Sam. And to give a little context, the speech that you're referring to is maybe a year and a half ago, when I went back to my high school after a long time and was inducted into one of the honor societies. And the topic of my speech was just be kind to others, and weaving the personal and the political into that. And I shared a bit about, it was my first sort of public coming out. Like, I never really announced to an audience or on whatever, like, I'm gay, but I mentioned this in this speech because it was part of an atonement, really, that when I was in high school, I wasn't the one who was consistently and always kind to others. I see myself now as, Nick, actually, in some ways, you were part of the problem in building yourself up by taking someone else down. And I realized that there's a different way and there's a better way, and that had an impact on me at the time and on others. And I wanted to find a positive message to bring back and sort of full circle and coming back to my high school. And so that was the speech that I made, with an encouragement to people, going back to the last line I had in my high school graduation speech, which was, above all else, to thine own self be true, a line out of Shakespeare's Hamlet. And it took me a while to actually live those words, but I thought that, to your point, if I can come back and share that story with people who are still, juniors and seniors in high school, with a lot to learn and a lot looking forward, perhaps that was the best use of the words that I could share.
Just so amazing. Like, God, so amazing. What brings you joy?
That's a really good question. If it is in a period of time which I can take some personal time, it's solo travel. Like, I love just going to a new place, immersing myself in a different culture, and kind of being in a place where, no one else knows me or knows that I'm there, and I get to kind of observe this cool world that I haven't visited before, and get to spend time, taking pictures and doing some reading. So that brings me the most joy, and I try and do that once or twice a year now.
Because you just went on vacation too recently, which was really nice.
Yeah, it was sort of a remote work week from Mexico for my boyfriend's birthday, and it was good. It'll be better when we both can actually take the time off.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Just work from somewhere.
Yeah,
but won't
exactly.
It was a good week.
All right, Nick. So before we go, is there anything that you want to plug? Tell the audience, where to find you, where they can find any information about Unite America or any sort of upcoming TV, I almost said TV appearances that you will be having.
I would say this, which is that I appreciated this time talking to you, Sam, and want to do this interview because you are someone who just recently quit your job to pursue a passion of yours and is being entrepreneurial about that. And so the thought that I would leave people with in looking at who you are and your story and what you're doing in both two different industries, two different paths, but find your passion. Don't be afraid to take a risk if you are able, and do it in a way where you're contributing kindness to others in the world. And I feel like that's hopefully a theme of this hour that will maybe inspire a person or two out there.
Awesome. Okay, and what is it uniteamerica.org? Is that where people?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the website.
Cool. Perfect. All right, Nick. Well, thank you so much for coming on the Shmee Show.
Good to be here with you at Shmee.
All right. Bye, Nick. Have a good day.
That's a terribly awkward way of ending that.
Yeah. That's the best way to end it. Whatever.
Man, son, what's she still doing here?
Did you know Olivia was suspended from school?
I didn't even know you could get suspended in kindergarten.
Tell your grandfather what you did.
I told my teacher go fuck herself.
You what?
What do you got for us, John?
Ben is still trying to reshoot that little Saturday Night Fever flick.
And I got my new Tony Manero and my new Stephanie Mangano.
Did you hear Charlie got a part in a play?
I'm supposed to be impressed.
We open on Friday, and I don't even feel like I know my part, and I'm the lead.
I gotta hear from Quantico that this Jude kid might have been taken out by the mob.
Charlie has what it takes. And this movie's better than the original movie. I'll take care of everything.
Your little friend Eddie, he put both of you in some deep shit.
Now who's ready to make the best film remake of a film remake ever?
Hit it! That's what I'm talking about.
Wait. You have a story that needs to be told.
Holy shit.
It's just a dumb disco movie.
What are you talking about? This is the opportunity of a lifetime. We can't just pass it up. Take this, because I want to help.
What the fuck is wrong with you guys?
Who the hell am I kidding?
Trying to make a movie. Survey says... Now, do you want to be like one of those actors that's here today and gone tomorrow?
Oh, no. Stop.
Freeze the motherfucker.
We're making a film!
Bye, dickhead. You're no fucking celebrity. You're a fucking clown.
We are witnessing film history before our very eyes.
I thought he was gay. He's always hanging out with that other guy.
Welcome back, guys. All right, next on the Shmee Show, we have a segment that I am so excited for because I get to eat and it's a Trader Joe's segment, and I am the unofficial Trader Joe's connoisseur. So today we will be taste testing the Summer 2021 Trader Joe's snack collection, but I can't do this alone because who else am I going to be a foodie with than Nicky Thomas?
Yes! Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Oh, I'm ready to munch.
You recommended some of these snacks.
I have, yes.
I recommended some of the snacks. Mm-hmm. And we have some wild cards that I was like, this is interesting.
Getting adventurous.
I know. So today we'll be trying the strawberry jalapeno crisps.
See me.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The key lime kettle corn, courtesy of maybe me.
We'll see.
We got the, what are these called again?
Chips in a pickle.
Chips in a pickle.
That's right.
Yeah, with some phallic artwork on the front. Mm-hmm. We have the famous TikTok cold brew boba, coconut non-dairy frozen dessert with tapioca pearls.
She sounds cute.
Yes, that's a moment. And then we have the iconic Trader Joe's Scandinavian swimmers.
Ooh.
What?
I love some Scandinavian swimmers.
Stupid. All right, so let's just dive into it because I'm salivating already.
Ooh.
So up first we have these strawberry jalapeno crisps.
Yes.
So what they look like, guys. Give it some Shmee cam moments. It's herby. It's fruity. Let's do it. Okay.
So ASMR.
I think I like.
No.
I don't know. I don't get it. Like
There's
why?
a lot going on.
Oh wait. Oh, that's really hot. Oh, that's really hot.
Not the ketchup palette. There's definitely a little jalapeno kick in there.
I don't know if I like that. I do not. For me, that's a hard pass.
Really?
Do you give it a Shmee approval?
I do.
Okay.
I really like it with some topping on.
No. All right, I need to clean my palate. Okay, so let's move on to the key lime kettle corn.
No.
See, I don't like artificially flavored things. One, because most times when things are artificially flavored, it's with like beaver semen, and I'm not even joking. Or like red velvet cake is the red is usually crushed up beetles.
Wait, isn't pudding like horseshoe?
Yes!
Or something like that?
Yes! So okay, here we go.
All right. I feel like I already snuck one in my mouth without realizing. Okay.
Wait, I don't know. Well.
No, I fuck with it. I like it.
It just tastes like kettle corn.
It does. Yo, it does.
Well, that's what it is, but I don't taste any key lime on it.
None whatsoever. Whatsoever.
So it's a hard pass.
I don't know. It's kind of some riggery. I don't detect any key or lime. Or
All right, moving on.
Okay.
Let's try this chip and a pickle. I love potato chips.
You do?
I love it.
I'm not a chip person. I'm not a picky person, honestly. Like
Really?
I enjoy like large portions. Like I don't know.
Well, these can be some large portions.
Okay.
They smell like pickles. It's probably just covered. It's probably just covered in dill. That's what it is, you know. Okay. Yeah. Oh my god.
Immediately.
It tastes like a hamburger because it's because French fries. And oh my god, that's why this is so good.
Let me collect myself.
Now.
I'd eat the whole damn bag.
This is Shmee double approval.
Double?
Wow. But I do have to say though, it's a little concerning. Because what stood out to them, or stood out to me in the aisle when I saw them, was this. What? That's a penis.
Oh, you can't even go through the produce aisle without like.
But come on, that is some phallicness going on there. All right, next.
Okay.
We have the boba cold brew ice cream.
Oh, I'm ready for this one.
And also this is all over TikTok. TikTok is screaming about this.
Let's dive in.
So let's give this a shot. Boba's a thing, even though it's been around forever. I don't know why it's a thing now.
Well, like Americans just kind of are like, they're like, we discovered this. It's like, no, you didn't, actually. A good thing you're being consistent.
Wow, this is really good, Nick.
If that's a double approval, this is a quadruple.
Oh my god. This is the power top to my palate right now. Oh my god.
Yo.
Wow. Okay.
Compose.
Last but not least, we have the Scandinavian swimmers. So I have both types. I got the lobsters, which are the classic, classic gummy. So let's give those a shot first.
These are their Swedish fish.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a win.
You can't mess this up.
No.
You can't fuck it up.
No, but then you put the fucking sour one after it.
The follow-up. It's like a 1-2 punch.
Oh god.
Now, hold on.
I know. They're so good. But guys, here's a problem though. These nutrition facts are not Shmee approved.
They're not it.
Per serving size, 21 grams of sugar.
For how many gummies?
6.
Ooh, baby.
No. So, shout out to TikTok. They have a hack that specifically says, if you love these guys, the sour ones, right? You can take green sour grapes. Okay.
Come on.
All right. You want to hold that one for me?
Okay.
and some lime juice.
Oh, she's got the nice lime juice.
Oh,
She's
yes.
got the Sicilian lime juice.
And what you're supposed to do is take the green sour grapes, guys, cut them in half.
Important.
Yes. And you're gonna go ahead and squirt that lime juice all over them. Okay. Yum, 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 yum.
Don't even have to marinate.
No. And then cheers. Let's see. Boop. Does it work? Let's find out.
Oh, I'm puckering.
Oh no, you have to get a lot of the lime juice. That's the key.
A little bit more.
Oh yeah, because when you scoop it on there, then it tastes like the gummy.
You gotta be a little healthy with it. Don't be shy.
Yes. Yeah. This is Shmee approved. Because imagine these frozen.
Oh, bitch. Oh, wow.
Okay, so yeah, I love that. What was your favorite one?
Was the boba ice cream.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes.
Like,
this is a perfect summer treat.
And it's non-dairy. I'm fucking this up. I gotta put it down.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Oh my God. Okay, but yeah, I
So-
think that's my favorite. What about you?
Ditto, literally ditto. Because I mean, the gummies are old school. They're classic, they're safe, but
Yes.
out of the new things today, 100% everyone go try the cold brew, coffee, and boba, coconut, non-dairy, frozen dessert. So, since you guys just watched us chow down on all these snacks, I want to give you guys a chance to try them at home. So, there will be a secret word on the screen at some point in our closing segment. If you enter that secret word into the comments, you will be entered in a raffle to win a $30 Trader Joe's gift card. So you can try all these snacks at home. And since Nick and I love doing this stuff,
we do.
Recommend snacks to us to try
Yes.
next time.
They're in the captain's seat now.
Oh, 100%.
And
You
we
are.
heard we're not the lieutenant. They're the lieutenant.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Sports? I don't know. So if you guys enter that secret word, you could win the $30 Trader Joe's gift card and try these snacks and let us know what snacks we should try next time.
I'm ready.
And when we come back, Kelly will be here to close out the show with me for another We're Done. All right, enjoy the break and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.
Bye.
All right, let's keep moving.
Abso-fucking-lutely.
Astral projection is the reported ability of some people to separate their souls from their bodies. Now,
I mean, the idea of a group that's looking out for the best interests of the world, that reincarnate when the world needs them.
But when we step into the light, we see the soul.
The most important thing about Blavatsky is her role in trying to synthesize a global spirituality.
You have questions. I have the answers.
I want to get to the bottom of this world that we live in. But what else is out there?
I don't really know how much I believe in psychics.
You're tapping into higher power and energy and universal wisdom all at the same time.
Like
You
Dana.
feed into it.
I hope and I pray that all of a sudden you have to be like, I believe.
They experience leaving their body, going to a different plane of existence.
They're an asshole. They're taking too much energy from you.
In the other side of the room, I saw little 5-year-old Sam.
Is that true?
She herself was wondering, was it from a past life?
What is up with all these sevens?
Freak in the house.
All right. Looks like we've reached the end of the show. What a great interview. I'm still salivating over those sour grapes. But on that note, I think you guys know what it's time for. It's time for my friend Kelly Fitz to stop by and share why we're done. Welcome back to the Shmee Show, Kelly Fitzpatrick!
Hey, Sam. Hi. I'm glad I'm here to be done with you.
You're done with me? But we just
Never.
started.
Never, sweetie. I'd never be done with you. I wish I could quit you.
Wait, that's my line to say.
It
Wait,
truly
hold on.
is. I'm sorry. I can't take that.
I'm very broke back today, too. In this, like, denim-ish shirt. Wow.
That's true. You're very rugged. You're absolutely... You're a mountain man, Sam.
Yeah. with my cover up and my hair coiffed back.
Yeah,
I'm very Mountain Man.
absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Anyways, how are you doing today, Miss Kel?
I'm doing all right. I just got home from work not too long ago. It's going to be the beginning of the holiday weekend right now. And so everybody's driving crazy. I work further up North Jersey and I live closer to the beach, and that's where everyone is going. So traffic getting home was a nightmare. But, you know, that's what the people want to hear about is my traffic troubles. How are you? How are you doing?
Great. So speaking of problems, so today's episode has been very politically problematic, I would say, in the least. You
did
just
you do?
watched that interview. Well, what did I
did.
do? What did
No,
America do?
I know.
What has America done?
Yeah. Well, I did just watch that interview. I enjoyed it a lot, actually.
Yeah.
It was very nice to listen to him, and just he clearly had I loved how the word intentional meant so much during the interview.
Yes.
And it's something that also, you said it resonates with you. It also resonates with me because I feel like a person that does something with purpose, it's always going to be done, whatever it is, better than someone that's just doing something to do something, especially if that person is passionate about it. Let's hope that what they're passionate about and what they're putting their intention into is something worthwhile and good.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're always going to get a better product if you believe in what you're selling. And I think he truly believes in his cause and believes in his organization and everything. I think that's amazing. And it was really, really cool to listen to him and to see you two banter off each other.
But it was so funny because there's a lot of that interview that actually did cut out because I sounded, for better or for worse, I sounded dumb. I was very politically naive, politically infant. Nick definitely had to correct me a lot of times. And I was also really nervous. I was actually more nervous for that interview than last week's with Alex Johnson. That's the little intel.
Well, that's the thing, because with Alex Johnson, she's obviously an expert in Alex Johnson, but so are you at this point. Politics, while you may be super active and it's something that you care about, that's not your life. That's not something you're immersed in. And it's not something that you've been immersed in forever, like Alex Johnson's music. Politics is something that it seems like, within the past, few years, 4 or 5 years, you've gotten more involved in and everything and actually really started paying attention to. That's that dude's life.
But so you wanted to say something about his Instagram before.
Yeah. So obviously when you told me who you were interviewing, I didn't look him up because I wanted to listen to the interview first, and then I wanted to watch it because I didn't want to have any preconceptions. While I was listening to the interview, I was reminded of someone from my past, my high school ex-boyfriend, who is very involved in politics and still is. And he just, the way he spoke, his cadence and just the way he carried himself reminded me so much of my ex. And then I went on an Instagram and my ex follows him.
No!
I was like, look who's here.
Of course.
I mean, it makes sense. Political, blah, blah, blah. It totally makes sense. But I was just like, that's the guy.
That is so funny.
Yeah.
Wait, so I want to ask, Kel, if you were to run for some sort of political position, what would your platform be?
Free the titty, protect the city.
What?
No, I don't know.
You're like Batwoman, like you're like the vigilante saving the city, but your costume is you're just.
I mean, if we're gonna be totally honest, I would never run for an office. I absolutely never would. That is what I can understand being responsible for myself and making decisions that will impact me. Mm-hmm. And eventually one day when I have a family, that's going to impact my family. But I could not imagine making a decision and making a call on such a big platform that it's going to impact change like that and affect so many people's lives. It's something I could not even imagine.
Oh, yeah.
I really couldn't. I don't know. I think probably, I don't know. There's just such a disparity of wealth, and there's so many just children who don't get everything they deserve. So I think maybe making a lot of stuff more accessible for schools and the teachers getting more support, things like that. Education would probably be something that I would really, really be a proponent of, making more accessible to everybody and making sure that everybody things are allocated more to some more important things.
Well, I'm surprised you didn't say, because I'm not going to speak for you, because I would love for you to tell the audience, but what your master's degree and what your initial study for your master's program was going to be.
Right. So I was in grad school, and I was going for speech language pathology. And so that is a lot of children, you know, when they're young, and adults that have accidents, or people that are born with disabilities have difficulty speaking and enunciating, and sometimes swallowing, and basically everything with the head and neck. So I guess, but that actually is something that has to do with education. It's allocating more funds towards special education in schools, and towards, you know, speech pathology in school. And, you know, I don't know, like I personally didn't have to go to speech class when I was little, but a lot of people I know did, and not everybody has that readily available for them. And so, you know, that's something that would have to do with that.
Did you have any we're done, I'm done, this is done moments this week?
It was about 400 degrees every day.
You're right. No, I agree. We were done with the heat. And then what I'm done with is New York City sending out an Amber Alert that said to conserve energy, turn off your AC.
I
Bitch,
saw
turn
that.
off fucking Times Square.
I saw that.
No,
I saw that. It was like it was someone like posted a TikTok about it or something like that. That was like, why is NYC telling me to turn off my window unit? It's the only one I have in my 3-bedroom apartment.
I discovered I cannot run my AC, run my standing tower fan, and microwave my sweet potatoes all at the same time, or it shuts everything down.
Choices, Sam. Do you want to eat or do you want to stay cool?
Both. I want both. I
thrive in the cold weather, and I mean, look at me. Are you shocked I'm basic? I love fall.
It's funny. In the wintertime, I'm begging for the heat, and in the summertime, I'm begging for the snow. I always want what I can have. Shout out to my ex-boyfriends. And on that note, we're done.
We're done.
Thank you, Kelly, so much for stopping by. I will see you
course.
next week. Have a fantastic weekend.
Can't wait. I'm excited. See you later.
All right. Bye, Kel.
Bye.
All right, you guys. And that's it. We're done. We're out of here. That was the Shmee Show. Thank you so much for coming by and watching again. I'm having the time of my life making this show. And I'm so happy that you guys are watching, because if you weren't, I would just be a crazy person in a padded room talking to himself. So I appreciate the validation that I am not that. I want to thank Nick Troiano for stopping by the Shmee Show. You are now my friend, but also just a great person. And I'm so happy someone like you is alive. Thank you for coming on the Shmee Show. I want to thank Nicky Thomas for enjoying all those snacks with me. And obviously Kelly Fitzpatrick for her banter and her insight on everything that makes this question. We're done. All right. I will see you guys next week. And you can follow me at Shmee Show on Instagram, at Sam Pelissero on Instagram and Twitter. And don't forget to go to shmeeshow.com to find more information on everything that you saw on today's episode. All right. Stay cool out there, guys, and always choose 100% pure joy. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.